It's been 3 years since we brought you our original award-winning investigation into the Terra collapse and interview with Do Kwon here on Coinage.
Does that make you an Elizabeth Holmes?
I don't think so.
No.
And almost exactly 3 years to the day since we published that piece, Do Kwon has just officially pleaded guilty in New York court to fraud charges.
Disgraced cryptocurrency mogul Do Kwon has pleaded guilty in the United States to 2 fraud charges.
So what does Do Kwon's guilty plea actually mean? How does his potential decades-long prison sentence stack up to the other crypto sentences that came before? And could filings from a Trump-aligned crypto project mentioning Terra's once great stablecoin UST be foreshadowing for a potential Trump pardon? This week, I was in the courtroom where Do Kwon officially accepted a plea deal with US prosecutors and pleaded guilty to 2 counts out of the 8 originally brought against him for his role in Terra's collapse. Those counts were 1 and 4, or a combination of conspiracy and fraud charges that Do admitted guilt to in court. And if it's a little murky as to what the definition of fraud is, you may recall us asking Do exactly that 3 years ago.
How you define fraud?
Well, if you knew something that wasn't true, and then you argue that that was true for personal enrichment or whatever purpose that might be, then that's fraud.
So in court, Do Kwon admitting to that is essentially what played out. Judge Engelmeyer asked Do to state for the record what crimes he was admitting to as part of this plea deal, and Do read from a prepared statement saying, quote, "What I did was wrong, and I want to apologize for my conduct." And even though it only took 45 minutes from start to finish, it was one of the first plea deals we've seen among the crypto cases the Department of Justice has picked to pursue. Of course, you may recall that basically none of the other high-profile crypto defendants chose to go this route. Not Sam Bankman-Fried, not Celsius founder Alex Mashinsky, and now here is Do Kwon, the one-time king of crypto, bending the knee and taking a plea deal. And by doing so, Do Kwon is forfeiting his right to a trial and any chance of an eventual appeal, which, if you rack up how these have recently gone, some surprising wins have actually happened on appeal, and that could be potentially a pretty big deal for Do. But to understand why a deal might be better than other options here, consider the final dice roll from FTX founder SBF. He took his case all the way to trial, only to lose and get sentenced to 25 years. As Bernie Madoff's former prosecutor Mark Litt told us in our investigation of that trial, SBF not pleading guilty was actually one of the more strange exceptions to the rule.
95% plus of all federal cases wind up in a plea or a conviction.
Alex Mashinsky didn't take a plea deal either and took his case to trial after his crypto lending company exploded. He got convicted after a weeks-long trial and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Tornado Cash founder Roman Storm took his money laundering case to trial and beat 2 of the 3 counts he was facing. He could potentially see a final sentence that comes in well lighter than the 5-year max sentence. And then there was Mango Markets exploiter Abraham Eisenberg, who drained the DeFi protocol of more than $100 million, went to trial to fight it, and got convicted on commodities fraud, commodities manipulation, and wire fraud, but then had all those convictions vacated after winning his appeal. It's worth noting, though, that the government still got him on 4 years for child porn charges, which very well could be why not a lot of DeFi advocates celebrated the win. But one appeal win that did stick was in the OpenSea NFT insider trading case. Nate Chastain had been sentenced to 3 months in prison after losing his trial, and actually served that time, but then won on appeal as well. And considering Do Kwon was staring down a maximum sentence of 130 years of all the charges the government brought against him, and that he had already lost his civil case against the SEC last year, perhaps all the math netted out at this point to be a much safer path to just plea out. And by taking the plea deal, the government is agreeing to not advocate for more than 12 years in total prison time. In addition, the government is also signing on to advocate to transfer Do back to Korea after he serves 50% of whatever final sentence he gets. And I say that because Judge Engelmeyer made it very clear that he will be the final decision here. And the 2 counts Do admitted to carry a total maximum sentence of 25 years. Do's attorneys also made it clear that Do will also have to face whatever potential judgment is to meet him when he eventually lands back in Korea. But considering what's been happening with President Trump, pardons, and in particular pardons for those in crypto, it does beg an interesting question of what's playing out in all the math and probabilities behind the scenes. Trump has already pardoned BitMEX's co-founders, and Binance's founder CZ hasn't been too shy about his jockeying for a pardon. It's thus not too far-fetched to include Do Kwon in that mix. And as some sleuths caught in a new SEC filing at ALT5 Sigma, the new Trump-aligned digital asset treasury company for World Liberty Financial, UST, Terra's stablecoin, is actually included in the digital assets the company is interacting with. Of course, that can mean absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it is interesting to also think about what the Luna community could mean to Trump as his family seeks to build out usage of their own USD1 stablecoin. In fact, in a world where Trump's sons are all in on DeFi and fighting de-banking, now, is it all that crazy to imagine a world in which Do's rallying cry would have connected with them just as it did with so many others?
The thesis that we put forward is that a decentralized economy needs decentralized money. And can we agree that we need that today more than ever?
The next hearing in Do Kwon's case is scheduled for December, when we'll learn more about sentencing and any restitution on top of the $19 million he's already forfeiting as part of the plea deal. I'm Zach Guzman, this was Coinage, and especially to all the haters who once doubted we got this story right.
Could have Do Kwon not have found someone better to do the interview?
He could call up CNN, he could call up Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I'm checking you, Zach. Like, what are you on about?
Like, I don't find him super entertaining. Nobody knows who this guy was.
Stay safe out there.